It's another episode of the Brett Allan Show. Thanks for watching and listening and being a part of what we're doing here. We are chatting with actor James Marsters. I'm excited about this. This is a very busy time of year for you. For what I can see, you're traveling to all the Comic-Cons and making the appearances. So thank you for your time today.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. Good to be with you. Good to be with a music lover.
Yes, huge music lover. Well, I've watched several of your interviews, and of course, one recently with Michael Rosenbaum's Inside of You. And I just love those conversations that he has with people. And I find your life and career very fascinating. But before we get going here, this is a busy time. I saw somewhere that you're getting ready to head over to England or somewhere to do another Comic-Con.
To Wales, yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
That's exciting.
I get free food on the plane. So that's free food tastes twice as good as any food I have to buy.
Yeah, I agree with, or just anything in general. I say that anything free is great.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, like on a set, it often is the game of the day is to complain about lunch. I'm sure other places are the same way. And I always push back saying, isn't this great food? It's free. It tastes great. People build skyscrapers, they bring their own sandwich, but they're feeding us for free. It's my way of saying, stop whining, please.
It's interesting. I know it's funny. Having done just a little bit of background and stand-down work here back in the day, craft services, it's I know it's interesting. I mean, I'm sure main cast food is much different, but I've had the privilege of getting in on some of that nicer food, and it's free. It is true. It's free. It's like, where else would you get, a prime rib at 2 a.m, not anywhere else, and not have to pay for it.
Yeah, it's insane. I'll never really get used to that, actually. And then there's the crafty table, which it takes a person a while to realize it's not for the actors. That's for the crew.
Yes.
If you avail yourself of the crafty table, you're going to need a new costume by the end of the season. So you just don't go over there, or go over there for coffee and get the hell out.
Yeah, no, it's funny that you say that. I remember one thing in particular. There was a show that was on In Plain Sight that was on USA Network, and I had opportunity to work on that as a stand-in for a few episodes. And yeah, there's like different tables for different people, and there's like the extras, they get the white rice and the chicken, the big container of cheese balls, pretzels. Then the crew, I could see your pain. Then the crew, they have their thing. And then everybody else, gets to kind of do things.
I think, Brett, yeah, it was always I always thought that the extras got food, but at a different time. I didn't know it was different food. That sucks. Because
it's usually much different.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Cast and crew all eat together. There's no like tiered system between like how famous someone is or anything like that. It's just like everybody gets a bunch of free food. But it sucks about extras, man. I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. I mean, just the fact that people get to be there and be a part of something cool, I think is enough, but I remember one time it was like 2 a.m, and they were bringing out, London broil, like at 2 a.m, just passing trays around of it for people to eat. And just
you had the tray passers. That's like only
they don't do that anymore. From what
I've only been on one set that did that. That was amazing.
Well, it was network television, so I don't know if they just had the extra dough, but
I think so. Yeah.
But even now, from talking to individuals, now you just have to pre-order everything, I would imagine. Or are they allowing people to start to come back and gather? Because that's part of the fun of what you do, is you get to hang out with people and eat together. But I don't know if they're doing that anymore still, or if they're going back to it.
In general, I think Hollywood has been very smart. They've had to be about COVID, because if one of the leads gets COVID, they have to shut down for weeks, and that's a lot of money. So they're very well incentivized to keep COVID out of the set. And so there's all sorts of testing going on. I think I'm tested every other day when I'm working.
Wow.
And I was working on what the project was. I was up north, and they were the crew and the cast were like, I was a recurring character, so I was popping in and out of the set, and they were like, we were doing 6 episodes back to back as a pilot, And they were, when the thing was over, the crew was afraid to go back to LA because they felt so
Wow.
safe in their little Hollywood bubble up in Napa Valley. And they were reading about what was going on in Los Angeles. They're like, I don't know if I want to go back. Yeah.
Well, having lived in the Bay Area for 12 years, I just moved to Colorado, and being in that area quite regularly, Napa, Sonoma, all of that sort of stuff. I get the vibe, people, because they were keeping things locked down quite well there for sure.
Yeah.
And
I
even
grew up near San Francisco, actually.
okay, so you're from
Yeah.
from East Bay, South Bay, where
No, no, I lived in Modesto,
okay,
which is where they grow the bad wine. They grow the
yes.
grapes for Gallo and Carlo Rossi up there.
Yes.
But a great place to grow up, man. I mean, like a lot of orchards, a lot of places to run around, canals to swim in. But we were about 90 miles southeast of San Francisco, and once we all got cars, we decided that we would be in San Francisco as much as possible. That was back in the 70s when San Francisco was still kind of funky.
Yeah.
It was kind of doable. It wasn't this gleaming fortress that it is now. I go back now and it's a very different place, but I still love it. It's beautiful. I'll always love San Francisco. It was my dream to work in theater in San Francisco.
Really?
And then, yeah, it was a completely unrealistic dream because I wanted to live in Sausalito. And I didn't realize, yeah, like, no, on a theater actor's salary, you're not going to, you could be homeless in Sausalito, but you
Right.
could probably not afford anything else. But I just wanted to live in Sausalito and take the ferry to work. And I thought that would be heaven on earth. But my life turned out differently.
That's a great dream to have. I mean, Sausalito is another great place. It's funny you mentioned the Gallo grapes. Yeah, for locally sourced grapes from the valley, aka, Modesto and out there in the middle of nowhere. Wow, so that's interesting. So that's what you wanted to do originally. So where did the shift come for you going into television and to film? Like at what point after you kind of, I don't want to say gave that dream up, but sort of decided
I did.
this is not maybe necessarily going to work. Like where was the pivot for you to move to the next step?
I read an article that said that a man's brain rewires when they see their firstborn child.
I agree with that.
Neurologically, right? Long-term planning becomes easier. Impulse control becomes easier. Basically, guys, we grow up.
Yeah,
I think
it happened to me at 46 or 42 when I had my kid. Yeah. I totally understand.
Yeah, and I think the same thing happens for women, but that this article was not about that. So I experienced this watching my newborn son get wiped off at the birthing table, and this voice came into my head. And I called the voice of God, and it said, "Go to Los Angeles, prostitute yourself for money. You have been having a wonderful time being a theater actor, but this little human did not make the decision to be poor. You knew what you were getting into. He wants more." So I called up a friend of mine that I knew from Modesto, actually, and he had become a successful casting director, and I asked him if he would help me get an agent. Wow. If he had said no, I might still be producing theater in Seattle because I knew how hard it was to get an agent. That's the big hurdle, the biggest one, because there's an ocean of actors down here, and there are only so many agencies. And so it doesn't really matter how good you are. You get lost in the shuffle very easily. So I called my friend, and I was very lucky. He said, "Oh, for you? Yeah." And we'd work together, and we kept in touch when we were both in New York. I was going to college there and he was working there. We kept in touch, and he knew that I was producing in Chicago and Seattle. And he's like, "Yeah, for you, I'll give you a nod." And he got me an agent. So yeah, I drove a U-Haul with my then wife, my son, and our cat from Seattle down to Los Angeles. And our plan was to try to just make a good nest egg and get out before we lost our soul.
So you're still in LA right now?
Yeah. And I think that I've found that if I bifurcate my life between my public life and my private life, I read an article that Tom Hanks does this.
Yes.
And that's why he's so normal. He's just a dude. and that's how he said he did it, and so that's what I do. And I don't know if I've reached a Hanksian level of normalcy, but I'm doing my best.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
imagine that's probably healthy for you too, in a lot of ways mentally, just to kind of keep things separate. Because, I mean, you don't read about you in the news or Tom Hanks in the news unless like some paparazzi tries to like knock his wife down. Then you hear about that,
yeah,
but rightfully so, because, you know, it's like, come on, where's the boundaries? But
yeah.
I would think that that would be good, you know, to kind of just keep those two separate. Is it challenging to do that, or have you just mastered it at this point to, you know, sort of be able to keep the two separate?
Well, I think I've done pretty well about it. Sometimes the truth is, if I'm on a film set or if I am doing a convention, there are a lot of people that really want me to be happy all the time.
Of course.
You know, and you start, and they do things for you so that you can be comfortable and happy. And if you get used to that, you start to feel entitled. It's almost inevitable. And so I have friends who are plumbers and electricians, and they don't care what I do in my day job. They don't care what I do for a living. And if they mention it, it's to make fun of me. You know, like, oh, I
That's
saw you on
cool.
television last night. What kind of lipstick was that? I want it for my wife. Come on. What's this Hollywood secret? Um, and
That's very cool. I have to
yeah.
say, I think that's very normal. Like,
Hmm.
that's really cool. I mean, to have people in your life, and it's not even like jokingly they keep me grounded, although that might be a piece of it, but really like they have zero interest in, you know, what you've done in your
Yeah.
filmography.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I give them guff too. You know, if I can make fun of them, I'll do it. I'll take a shot. But um, yeah, but sometimes I come back from filming or from playing music or from being on the road doing conventions, and I'm kind of feeling myself like, oh,
Of
I'm
course,
pretty
yeah.
cool, you know. And I'm like, how you doing, James? I'm good. Oh, really? Oh, you've been on the road, haven't you? Oh,
You've been
yeah.
signing autographs all day, uh,
Yeah.
doing Buffy
Your
poses or Brainiac
self-esteem
poses.
is really high, dude. Why don't you
Yeah.
come back down to us? Yeah.
Well, that brings up an interesting question that I would have, because I've attended a lot of these events just as press and conducted lots of interviews with people. And I could see that piece, you know, when I was just at the Denver Fan Expo here a few weeks ago. I could, we got in early, my son and I. We were kind of walking around and we headed down to Celebrity Row, as I call it, where all the people are to sign. And I
Yeah.
could notice that for some of these people, they were going to like massive lengths to make them extremely comfortable, on different levels. Um, so when you go to these events, because you do quite a lot of them, um, I would assume, just from what you're saying, that when they meet you, the team meets you. Do you, when they start doting over you, does it become a challenge and polarizing to sort of accept it, or you're just kind of like, hey, I'm cool. Give me a table. Give me, where am I at? Give me my Sharpies and
Yeah.
I'm good to
It's just,
go.
yeah, it's easy. They're like, can I get you a cup of coffee? And I'm like, no, I can get my own coffee. That's cool.
That's cool.
Oh, it's a little far. You want us to get a golf cart? Like, no, I got legs, man. Let's
A
walk.
golf
It's all good.
cart.
It's like, it's not a big deal. So yeah, it doesn't have to be a big deal to kind of skirt around that. And then if you just treat people as equals, and you start to make a connection with the people around you as people, then all of that can kind of go away, and you just kind of meet a nice person and you work together.
I love that. And, you know, too, probably on the other side, they're probably over prepping these people. And two, they've probably, a lot of them have not ever been around a quote unquote public figure, which I even know that's polarizing, you know. So I could see the nervousness, but I love that you are just kind of like, hey, you know, I'm good. You know, I'll just kind of cruise around and do my thing. And even when you bring that vibration or energy to a film set or a TV set, that probably puts people at ease and disarms them a little bit too.
Yeah. And generally speaking, like I've only been on one set that I worked with like A-list actors like Kathy Bates, Hilary Swank, Gerard Butler, and they were the most humble, hardworking, normal, grateful people I've ever worked with.
Hmm.
And I was shooting with Kathy Bates, and we were coming into a room, and she had like 103-degree temperature that day, and she was somewhere in her 60s. And they spent 11 hours shooting over the backs of our heads onto Hilary Swank. And on the 11th hour, the last hour of filming, they turned around for our coverage, for our close-ups. And I thought that this Academy Award winning actress was going to have just one word with this first time director about time management. But all she did, because she's got a 103 temperature. I mean, come on, like that's not easy. So she just turns to me. She's got her hand on the doorknob. She turns back and she goes, "Men from the boys, James, here we go." And that's it. And I fell in
Wow.
love. I just fell in love. I thought that is it right there. And I asked her about it, and she said, "James, when you're on the A-list, you're working with A-list directors and writers and producers, and they can work with anyone. And so having a bad attitude is just not generally accepted on the A-list. That's how you get on the A-list,
Right.
is you are a professional."
That's funny.
And
Yeah, it's
I
like
came
wealthy.
to,
Yeah, I get
yeah.
that.
So like generally speaking, entitled behavior usually happens on the B and C list. You know, it's kind of a marker of that.
Like on
Um,
oh, that's funny that you say that. Yeah, it's interesting. I think whenever I get ready for these interviews, going back to what you said, is people always have this expectation of wanting you to be happy, to be in a good mood. But I think when we, try and land the plane for people and sort of do everything that we can, I don't know. It's like my kid, like I try and make him happy sometimes.
yeah,
It's virtually impossible sometimes. And sometimes it's just like, just letting him be, I think, is far greater than trying to like bribe his attention, so to speak, or whatever.
yeah,
So I think that's
I
very
agree.
fascinating. I feel like I've learned a lot just in the last 10 minutes because
Well,
it's
like
hard to be you, I would think, as far as like going back to people, not for you to be you, but like when you get around other people who don't know you, maybe, or come into these filming situations and they
well, I
want to
think
make you happy.
when I enable someone, I'm enabling them. If I'm trying to make it like solve every problem before it
Right.
happens, sweep the road before they walk it, I am enabling them, and they are
Right.
going to end up entitled, whether that's my kids or my friends or anyone else. I remember when my son was very young, the thought went through my mind that what I wanted for him was, for his life, was to be bent but not broken. That the life would challenge him to the point almost of breaking, but not that far,
Mm.
because that's what happened to me, and I'm grateful for it. But I also knew that I wasn't going to be the one to be able to do that for him. That I'm always going to want him to be safe and comfortable and provided for. But it was just kind of like, I'm, as a parent, actually at odds in some ways with what's best for that little dude. It's a weird thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. That makes perfect sense. Growing up and them watching you be on all of these shows, films, did they ever kind of express interest in what you were doing or have the desire to do the same thing? Or were you just dad and you were on TV and
Oh,
movies and that was kind of it?
yeah. Neither one have any interest in being an actor. I think if you see someone live the life of an actor and you have a head on your shoulders, you generally just say, "No way,
I'm not
that's
interested.
insane." Like,
Yeah,
no,
it's a
like
wild
I've been an
world.
actor, so I've been hungry for 25 years. Like, who wants that? Come on. So yeah, they don't want anything to do with it at all, and I think they're pretty smart. Yeah.
Yeah, they have other interests. I see those
Oh
guitars
yeah.
in your background.
Mm-hmm.
You're a musician. I knew that, and you play. Did they have any interest in that piece of it, or is it just kind of like that's cool for them, but the front facing stuff, uh, being hungry for
Yeah.
25 years is just of no interest?
My son actually is an incredible musician. When he was 14, he brought a guitar trio to do the be an opening act for the band that I'm in called Ghost of the Robot. We were doing Santa Monica, and they came in and just ruled. They were amazing. It was all
Wow.
original songs, 3 guitars, all instrumental, no vocals, and they just brought the house down. They were amazing. And after the show, my band circled me, not my band, but the band, Ghost, circled me and said, "Hey, we found our new guitarist. We've been looking for one because we lost somebody to drugs and who died." And I said, "Oh, good, thank God, we've been looking forever. Who is it?" He goes, "Your son."
Nice.
They said, as a father, you can veto this because it's a weird life, but as a band member, you're already outvoted because you love him. So shut up unless it's a dad thing. So he came into the band, and the first album that he worked on, he just did some background vocals and some guitar licks here and there. By the second album he did with us, I think he had 1 or 2 tracks. By the third album, he was kind of producing the album.
That's funny.
It was him and another band member were really calling the shots, and he's kind of taken over the band. It's just
That has to be cool
Yeah.
as a parent, though, to have your kid sort of just take the reins like that and let you just kind of be.
Yeah, he spent his senior year in college in his undergraduate in Asia, actually. And so he went through Mongolia, China, Japan, all of these things. It was through his college. They had this great program. And so I didn't see him for 9 months. And then he came back, and within a week, we were playing music publicly together. And I just remember out in front of everybody, just looking over like, this is insanely cool. Like I missed you so much, and now we're playing music. It really is one of the great joys of my life.
That's very cool. I mean, I have to say, it's refreshing because you have, so from my perspective, I think you just kind of have things worked out really well. I mean, I'm sure there's been challenges, but really, as far as your life as an actor, a musician, being a parent, and really just learning how to keep those worlds separate, I think is cool. You could probably
Thank
teach
you.
a master class on how to do that, because watching your world is so crazy. It is wild being a working actor, although you've had massive highlights, in what you've done, but you're also still have this desire and drive to like be a better human being, be a better actor, and really just
Yeah,
make people be happy in life and really enjoy what I consider to be success, because you have had huge successes,
I was, that it's interesting you bring that up about what is success, man. Because I, I was recently, I divorced my son's mother. We had split up. And so I was visiting him. I had to drive like 5 hours up north to visit him. And I was doing that every other weekend. But I was
Wow.
also filming Buffy at the time. We worked 80-hour weeks. We'd work up to 20 hours a day. And I said, I want to talk to my son every day on the phone.
Yeah.
And he was pre-verbal at this time. And it was really tempting to say, "Oh, I'm too busy on the set. I don't have time to call today. I'm too tired. It's not safe for me to drive that far." Because I would like you start work at 4:30 in the morning on Monday morning, and you get out when the sun comes up on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And every other weekend, I would get in a car, drive 5 hours, and that's not necessarily completely safe because you really are tired.
But it's
And then
dedication, though,
yeah,
is
and then
what it is.
pick up a 4-year-old, hang out all weekend, drop him off, drive back to LA, get in at midnight, go to sleep for 4 hours, get up at 4:30 in the morning or 3:30 in the morning, and go back and do it again. So it was really tempting to kind of not be there for my son. And I was so lucky. I read this short book by the Dalai Lama. I forget the name of the book. It's all about science and Buddhism. But anyway, I don't remember anything from the book. Zero, except this one thing. And he said that all of our lives we're preparing for the moment of death. And so we should live our lives in a way that when we die, we're not like, "Oh, damn it, I should have done that." Or, "Oh, damn it, I shouldn't have done that." We shouldn't have a regret. And I just put the book down and I thought, okay, my death, if I'm thinking about a television show and that's all I got when I die, it's only going to be so good. It doesn't matter how
Yeah.
good the television show is. But if I'm thinking that I'm good with my son and he knows I love him and he's doing well and I know that he loves me, that's the kind of death I want. And so that helped me prioritize about what actually is success. And the acting just revealed itself to be that's the job
Yeah.
that fuels me as a father. And that's really all it is. It's no different than being an electrician or being a plumber. And I'm just lucky that I like that job. I enjoy myself doing that job. But its importance really isn't just that I pay the bills at the end of the day. And
Wow.
I got to say, I'm equally as proud of my daughter, but she has a hard and fast rule that I don't talk about her publicly. She's just like, keep
Hey,
me the
that's
hell
great.
out of all of this
No,
stuff.
no, that's
Yeah,
I
yeah,
respect that 100%. No,
yeah,
no, that's um smart for her. So when
yeah.
you say North, were you filming Buffy? Where were you filming Buffy, in Southern California or Canada or
We were actually filming in Santa Monica,
okay, Santa
and
Monica?
they repurposed an old warehouse of some kind. Had two sound stages. They weren't really sound stages. They like the sound would bleed mercilessly, and we were in the flight path of two or three airports.
Oh my goodness.
I guess maybe two, LAX and Santa Monica. And so one out of four takes were ruined for sound because of
Wow.
airplay. So just that. Um, but yeah, it was really cool. They every year they would continue to build a little bit of external sets. They built Sunnydale year by year. They would take some of their budget and make a back lot basically. And
Wow.
by the end of it, they had a full street and two side streets that we could film outside and get all these exterior shots and never really leave our little camp. It was amazing.
Wow. And then you would go drive to be with your son. I think that's remarkable. I just moved to Colorado. We were in Northern for years. My job allows me to just do this anywhere. So, and
Yeah.
work. And it's interesting. People said similar things like, wow, for you to move all the way across the country to be with your son, is crazy. And not crazy, but just impressive. And it's like, well, going back to what you said earlier, I can't imagine not like doing it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I sell wine for a living. I can go anywhere and do that. And I just,
Good for
to me,
you.
thank you. That's how I define success, is really just being a good father. And then all this things, talking to you and others, and all of it is just a really is successful byproduct of, I think, just being committed to the basic things, and
Yeah, like I've been to a lot of hospital wings. Uh, my parents have passed away. I've had friends that have been, had cancer, and you go into these wings, and it seems like in every wing there's one or two rooms where someone is going, and they're just wailing all day long and irritating everyone. And I don't know this for sure, but I have to wonder if these are the people who didn't move to Arizona to be with their son.
yeah.
You so good on you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer for me. Just a couple more questions here. I know people probably put you in the Buffy camp and what they know you for and all of that sort of thing, but interestingly, going back to this thought of, everybody wanting you to be happy and to put you into a box, have you learned, believe in Smallville, I mean, but I think Buffy is probably the most memorable.
Yeah.
Do you ever have you had to learn to mitigate that too, and just realize that this is just kind of something that's going to stick with you for the rest of your life?
Yeah, I mean, professionally, I was very lucky because I could just shave the hair off and go natural brown,
Mm-hmm.
drop the accent, and I was basically another fresh face. You know, I so I wasn't asked to play vampires constantly
Oh,
or
good.
blonde rock stars. I mean, I could have kept the blonde hair. I probably could have gotten some work off that, but I think I would have just played drug addicts and rock stars. Like versions of spike-ish stuff. Um, and then as far as just having being known for Buffy, I love Buffy. I
Yeah.
actually think that it mattered. I think that it said something very useful, which is don't give up.
Right.
The theme is life hurts, it's hard, it's a challenge, but it's worth it. So keep going. And I just think that's an amazing thing to try to give the world. And it was very, very well written and very, very well produced and directed. I think the acting was good enough not to ruin it. And
Wow.
which is, important. Like no author can withstand bad acting. Not even Shakespeare can withstand bad acting. And bad Shakespeare is the most painful thing in the world. So,
Love it.
acting that doesn't ruin the writing is important. But I don't mind people bringing up Buffy. I don't mind people talking about Buffy. I just feel forever grateful and lucky that I got to be a part of it, frankly.
Yeah. Well, you've had a really great career, and I know you have lots more traveling to do, whether for work or for these appearances. So I appreciate you taking time. This has been a very enlightening conversation and just deep. I think, I'm fascinated with just, I've learned a lot. And that's always good. And I think our listeners will too, just learning how to take this life that we have and maximize it to the full capacity and learn to sort of, separate the things that you can control versus the things that you can't control, and just be happy. Be happy without being forced. Of course.
I know you got to go, but okay. This is what I'm starting to discover, and because I'm getting old, so you got to hopefully learn something. But there is what's going on inside my head, which is a bunch of dreams and expectations and old angers and fear, so much fear. And then there's what's going on outside of my cranium, which is what we call reality.
Yes.
And realizing that those two things are very separate, and that the world doesn't know or care about my expectations. For instance, it does no good to get upset when there's traffic in Los Angeles. The traffic is that's reality. And it doesn't care if I am late for work, or if I've not left early enough to get to work. That's reality. And I used to really feel that it was unjust that I would be made late for work when there was traffic. I felt like, oh, God hates me because there's traffic today. No, it's just that the universe didn't wake me up in the morning like a waiter. Hello, James. Would you like traffic today or no traffic today? Thank you. No traffic. We'll bring that right away. And so I'm just realizing that there's so much unreality in my head, and trying not to live there, trying not to have a lot of expectations, trying to get out of trying to control the world, I guess.
Yeah. I love it. I appreciate your honesty and just your transparency about your life and just your experiences and your experiences with craft surfaces. It's
I used
great.
to eat a donut when I was playing Spike. It was all about being thin. So I would grab a donut off of craft service. I would take one bite, chew it, spit it out, and throw the donut in the trash and just keep walking. That was my snack.
I'm like, this guy is really method. What's wild?
Crazy.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, we have to do this again sometime. I know you have a lot happening, but James, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Right on, Brett. You're a good dude. It was really fun talking with you.
Thank you.